Being human isn't easy. Being a functional adult isn't easy. But you know what's even harder than being an adult? It's being a teenager. You couldn't pay me enough money to be a teenager again. It was hard enough the first time, and that was 35 plus years ago. I can't even imagine trying to do it today with social media and school shootings and all of the heavy that these poor kids have to deal with on a regular basis. Do you know what's even harder? It's navigating all of those really hard things while also having excess weight. Having excess weight has detrimental effects on mental health in our adolescents. It's indisputable. Adolescents with excess weight have higher rates of depression and anxiety than those without excess weight. They are bullied at much higher rates. During a period of life that's already fraught with so much insecurity and uncertainty and angst, they have to deal with a whole additional layer of hard. Many grown-ups who experience mental health problems struggle to keep their heads above water while dealing with them. And most have decades of experience propping them up. Imagine trying to do that without prior experience and/or wisdom. Add in the pervasive social media culture that these teens are immersed in, and then throw in a less than fully developed brain. Scary. Then, just to add insult to injury, add on the high rate of physical problems that our adolescents with obesity struggle with. They have higher rates of asthma and sleep apnea and joint problems and a whole host of physical things that make life harder to live. Adolescence is a time of life when we are designed to be physically vibrant. We should be functioning at our peak physical performance. It's heartbreaking that so many of these kids are missing out on this vibrant living. And here's where it gets scary. Every year, this obesity epidemic is affecting more and more of our kids. Right now, 19% of our youths have obesity. That's 1 in 5. Another 1 of those 5 has pre-obesity or overweight. Maybe you think this topic doesn't really apply to you. Maybe you don't have kids, or your kids have already become adults. Keep listening. We need to think about kids as the canaries in the coal mine. When I was growing up, maybe 5% of kids had excess weight. Now that my generation is middle-aged, almost 3/4 of us have excess weight. Only 1/4 have normal weight. What's this current generation of adolescents going to look like in 20 or 30 years? They are going to be in the workforce. They are going to be paying into the healthcare system and taking out of the healthcare system. It does affect you. Maybe you have kids, but you don't think it affects you because your kids don't have excess weight. And a lot of them don't, yet. Here's where you see how genetics plays a role. We are currently living in something called an evolutionary mismatch. The diet our body is designed to eat is radically different from the diet we are currently eating. For almost every last one of us, what we eat today is incompatible with having a healthy body. We eventually develop 1 or more things that occur as a result that we lump under the terms cardiometabolic diseases or non-communicable diseases, things like high blood pressure and diabetes and obesity. Not all of us get all of them. Some of us only get obesity, and some of us just get heart disease. Some of us get lots of them. Think of it like this. Let's say we all collectively fall down a huge flight of stairs. Some of us will get a head injury, others will break a leg. Some might only get 1 injury, and others will get 5. The situation's the same. The consequences vary. Our bodies manifest this dietary mismatch by developing problems in different organ systems. We also develop these problems at different rates. The time to illness has a lot to do with genetics. Some people have a lot of genetic reserve, meaning they can tolerate the problem for quite a long time before the damage starts to show up. Some people have less genetic reserve and the damage shows up really early. Combine this genetics with exposure and things start to make sense. Genetics aren't all of it. The childhood obesity rate was in the single digits only 30 years ago. The adult obesity rate was in the single digit 100 years ago. Our genetics have not undergone a massive shift in the past 100 years. That's actually impossible. Aside from a random mutation or 2 along the way, the genetics of all of us alive today are almost identical to all of the people alive 1,000 years ago, when obesity and diabetes and heart disease were almost unheard of. What's changed is our exposure. We are now exposed constantly, relentlessly to this dietary mismatch. As our diet keeps shifting further and further away from what our ancestors ate for millions of years, whole foods, the exposure is coming at us faster and sooner. It's whittling away our genetic reserve faster and faster. By the time we finally develop obesity or another chronic disease, a ton of damage has already been done, and then we have to spend the rest of our lives trying to undo it. Ignoring these things because our kids are normal weight, bragging that they can eat whatever they want and stay skinny, is akin to saying they can smoke all they want and they don't have lung cancer. Waiting until they have obesity to do something is waiting too long. And here's what's even more depressing. Even if you do everything in your power to feed your kids exactly what their bodies are designed to eat, if they are raised in a home where they only eat a hunter-gatherer diet and never eat processed foods or sugar or drink fruit juice or other things in that evolutionary mismatch category, it still might not be enough. Once they are eating at school, it's a different story. Once they are eating at friends' houses, it's a different story. Once they have the ability to drive and make their own food choices, you've lost all control. And don't expect them to cough up some magical willpower when that happens. I have been treating adults with excess weight for over 10 years, and everyone is trying to find that elusive willpower thing. If using tens of thousands of years of experience and wisdom, my adult patients can't find that willpower thing, we certainly can't expect these kids to do it. Add to the fact that their entire teen culture is heavily centered around unhealthy food, and they are heavily marketed to by food companies. And it's like asking them not to swat at the fly that keeps landing on their eyelashes. Eating like everyone their age is eating is what they are programmed to do. Expecting kids with obesity to make better choices when everyone else around them is eating poorly, and many of the others aren't showing any ill effects from those dietary choices yet, is asking them to do something really, really difficult. Most of my adult patients struggle with the awkwardness and discomfort that comes with eating differently than those around them. And again, they have years of experience and wisdom to lean upon. Our adolescents have very little of that. Our adolescents with obesity don't want to have excess weight any more than us adults do. However, the last thing they need to hear is us preaching to them about making better choices and exercising more. It simply doesn't work. Just like with adults, it's rarely an education problem. It's an execution problem. In addition to solid medical guidance from a well-trained clinician to identify and treat all the things that can go along with having excess weight, what our adolescents need is a supportive environment where they don't feel like outcasts. An environment where making healthy food choices is normalized instead of being the exception. And that is something that is going to come from all of us. It's not an individual problem. It's actually a huge top-down problem that is going to take a lot of players to solve, but we can't afford not to try. I'm actually not a big player in that space. I'm so immersed in the field of adult obesity treatment that I can barely look up. I don't even treat kids. Thankfully, I employ quite a few people that do, and they are wonderful. Dr. Orr is incredibly passionate about this subject. She spends quite a bit of her free time obsessing about how to help and support our adolescents and talking to them in groups about health and wellness, which is amazing. I'm coming at this problem as a human and as a mother, as a human who began struggling with excess weight in my mid-teen years, and as a mother who has kids that are struggling with weight in their teen years. Kids that are smart and driven and kind and amazing and that don't want to have excess weight. Kids that are fed incredibly well at home, but as teens are expected to make a lot of their food decisions in this food carnival they are immersed in outside the home. It's very personal and it's very painful. And the more we talk about it and realize that it affects all of us one way or another, the closer we can actually get to doing something about it that will make a difference.